Guys, welcome back today. Very, very excited to have my friend Jay Connor on today. Jay, you're a best-selling author, investor, flipper, rehabber, nationwide speaker, coach to just thousands of students. You've raised millions of dollars in private money. You're literally a legend in this business. We're in a mastermind together, the family mastermind. You're definitely one of the go-to kind of, you know, bigger than life personalities there. But how did you get started in all this? What kind of kicked it off?
Well, first of all, David, thank you so much for inviting me to come along and talk about my most favorite subject that I'm so passionate about, that being
Hmm.
private money and private
Yeah.
lending, because private money and private lending's had more of an impact on our real estate investing business than any other strategy
Yeah.
that we have employed. We've been investing in single family houses full time since 2003 here in Eastern
Wow.
North Carolina in a small market.
Yeah.
And David, the first 6 years that we were investing in single family houses from 2003 until January of 2009, the only thing I knew to do to get my deals funded was go to the local bank, get on my hands and knees, say, please fund my deals, and give
Yeah.
my financial statements. They pulled my credit. They made me pull up my skirt to show all my personal assets. And anyway, all that worked okay for the first 6 years. But David, you asked how I got involved in private money. Everything
Yeah.
changed in January 2009. I
Yes,
had
it did.
two houses under contract to
Hmm.
purchase, and I called up my banker. His name was Steve, and Steve and I had done a ton of deals together for 6 years. And I learned like that over the telephone that they had closed my line of credit for my investing business. And I said,
Hmm.
Steve, what in the world are you telling me? My line of credit is closed. I've got a great track record with you. What's going on?
Yeah.
And Steve said, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right
Yeah.
now? I said, no, but you just gave me a global financial crisis
That's right.
because now I got my deals under contract and no way to get them funded. So I hung up the phone, sitting here at my desk, David, and I want to share with you and your audience a very powerful question that I asked myself. And this question will help fix any problem that you or your audience has. I don't care if it's relationship, financial, career, health, it don't matter.
I love it.
And here's the question I ask. By the way, these people running around saying every problem is an opportunity. I want to be the Kool-Aid guy that runs, head first into the brick wall. That drives me crazy. Hey, listen, I didn't have an opportunity. I had a problem. Now, that problem became an opportunity,
Yes.
right? But at the moment, it was a problem. Here's the question that I asked myself. I said, Jay, who do you know that can help fix your problem? All the powers in asking the right questions.
That's
And
right.
David, when I asked myself that question, I immediately thought of our good friend Jeff Blankenship, who lived in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time. He was investing in single family houses, and I called him up and I told him what had just happened. He said, well, Jay, welcome to the club.
Yeah.
I said, what club is that? He said, the club of having the bank shut down your line of credit. He said, my bank shut me down last week. I said, well, Jeff, how are you going to fund your deals?
Yeah.
He said, well, have you ever heard of private money? I said, no. He said, have you ever heard of self directed IRAs and how people can use retirement funds and lend money to us real estate investors and earn passive income, either tax free or tax deferred? I said, Jeff, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. I said, what is private money? He said, well, I don't know either, but there's this guy down in Jacksonville, Florida by the name of Ron LeGrand that
Right.
can tell us how to get a lot of it. I said,
Yeah.
okay. So I went to my very first real estate investing seminar after being in this
Really?
for 6 years
Yeah.
to go learn about private money. And I learned about private money. I came back home, David, and I put my program together that I was going to offer potential private lenders. And you know what's interesting, David? Since that
Tell me.
time, I've never asked anybody for money. I've never pitched a deal. And people ask me, they say, Jay, well, how do you have all those millions of dollars available to you in private money? And you never asked for money and you never pitched a deal. I said, here's the secret. I put on
Yeah.
my teacher hat.
Yeah. I love it.
Teacher hat says private money teacher is what.
Hmm.
So, you know what's interesting, David, is I got 47 private lenders funding my deals. Not one of my private lenders ever heard of private money or private lending or self-directed IRAs and how they can use your
Yeah.
retirement funds until I put on my teacher hat and I went about teaching them what this world is about, how they can earn high rates of return safely and securely. And here's a
Hmm.
big part of the secret sauce, David. I did not ever, when I would first talk about private money and private lending and the program and the opportunity I would offer, I never talked about a deal initially
Yeah.
that I needed funding because here's a writer downer.
Okay.
Desperation, desperation's got a smell to it.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you're talking about an opportunity and what private money is, and in the same conversation, talk about a deal that you need funded,
Hmm.
you're already sounding desperate without even trying to sound desperate. So I shared the opportunity with people that I go to church with in Business Networking International, Rotary Club. I put on a private lender luncheon. I got a pledge at that one 90-minute luncheon for $969,000. And it was all led by having a outlook of a servant's heart.
Yeah.
None of these people ever heard of self-directed IRAs. None of them heard of private money until I taught them about it. And then I'm going to share a short little script with you and your audience, and I'm going to turn it back to you.
Cool.
And so then after I taught them the program, they love it. They tell me how much they got to work with. Here's the exact script, David.
Okay.
Here's the exact script that I get all my deals funded without ever having to pitch a deal. Now, remember, the important part of this process is teaching the program first, the opportunity first, without
Hmm.
having any deals attached to it. And then I know if they've got retirement funds, I know if they've got investment capital, whatever. They tell me how much they got to work with. Maybe I need to introduce them to a self directed IRA representative. They got funds moved over. And then I tell them, okay, I'm going to give you the good news phone call just as soon as possible, and I'm going to put your money to work. So maybe a week or two goes by, and David, let's say you're one of my new private lenders,
Yep.
and let's say you've moved over $150,000 from a 401k or wherever, and you've got that sitting in the account, and you got it ready to go. Here's the exact script that I call up and would tell you as my new private lender. I call you up, you answer, we have a little chit chat. And then here's the script. I say, David, I've got great news for you. I can now put your money to work. I've got a house under contract in Newport with an after repaired value of $200,000. Now, the funding required for the deal matches up to what you have ready to go, $150,000. And closing is going to be next Tuesday. So I'll need for you to have your funds wired to my real estate attorney's trust account by next Monday. I'm going to have my attorney email you the wiring instructions.
Hmm.
That's the end of the conversation.
So don't overcomplicate it.
No, keep it simple. It's like the most stupid question I could have asked you is, do you want to fund the deal? Well, of course you want to fund the deal for three big reasons.
Okay.
Number one, you trusted me to tell you about this world, and you moved over that
Yeah.
$150,000 to the self directed IRA company that I recommended. Secondly, you're not earning any money until I put your money to work.
Right.
You're counting on me to put your
Mhm.
money to work. And thirdly, you know I'm not going to bring any deal for you to fund unless it matches the criteria of the program that I already told you about, the maximum loan to value and all
Mhm.
that. So you know I'm going to call you with a deal to fund that matches what I already taught you, right?
Yeah.
So for those three reasons, you cannot wait to wire your funds for my closing.
Wow. I love it. That's fantastic. So I've borrowed a lot of private money, but I don't think I've ever done it quite that way. And I love what you're doing. It's certainly a lot smoother. So you talk about lots of ways to teach them and educate them, but even before that, like how are you attracting the right people to even have these conversations? Like, where are you finding them? Like, what are you doing to bring them to you?
Yeah. The right people, quite frankly, are anybody that I know. But let me
Hmm.
zero down on that. I teach real estate investors how to do this exactly the way that I do it.
Hmm.
And step one, well, no, let's back up. Let's back up. When they ask me what's the first thing I need to do,
Yeah.
here's what I tell them. The first thing you got to do is own the real estate between your ears. And what I mean by that is get the right mindset. And this is particularly a challenge for real estate investors that have never raised capital.
Yeah.
Most people think you got to pitch deals. Most people think you got to chase and beg and sell and all that kind of stuff. And the opposite is true. You know, the traditional way to borrow money, institutional money, even from hard money lenders, and this world, I'm not talking about hard money. The traditional way that only people know is to apply. Well, guess what? There are no applications. You're already approved.
Yeah.
Why are you already approved? Because you are the underwriter. You're the
Hmm.
underwriter of your own deals.
Yeah.
Traditionally, it's the bank or it's the person that's got the cash that makes the rules. Not in this world. You see, we're not asking for a mortgage, we're offering a mortgage. So, step one to get straight is the mindset. And you know
Hmm.
what I learned over the years, David, is our private lenders appreciate us so much because they're earning so much more money than they would be, say, at the local CD and the bank. And they don't have to worry about the volatility of the stock market. When they
Yeah.
invest with us, it's a debt. They know exactly what their rate of return is going to be, which, by the way,
Sure.
I've been paying 8 to 10% ever since 2009 with no origination fees, no extension fees, and they never want their money back anyway. Back to your question.
Yeah.
Where do I find these people? Well, when I teach other real estate investors to make their list of potential private lenders that are in their cell phone,
Sure.
they're in their cell phone, make your list first of who's retired. Who's retired?
Yeah.
Because if you start with retired people, there's a good chance they have retirement funds.
Hmm.
But where do I find these people? I'll tell you a short story. One of my very first private lenders, I put my program together and I've got 2 different methods that I teach of having opening conversations with people. One is the direct method, one is the indirect method. I'll just share
Hmm.
the indirect method in the form of a story. So it was on a Wednesday night at 7:30. Carol Joy and I go to Bible study at the Morehead City Church of Christ here in Morehead City on Barber Road. So we were going there to Bible study on a Wednesday night, right after I'd put my program together. I
Yeah.
walked into the foyer of the church building and I walked up to a gentleman. He and I had known each other a while, and his name was Wayne. So I walked up to Wayne and here's exactly what I said to Wayne. I said, Wayne, I'd like to visit with you about something confidential after we finish tonight here at Bible study. Have you got a few minutes? He said, sure. So we had Bible study. We get together down in the nursery and shut the door. Here's exactly what I said to Wayne. I said, Wayne, you know everybody in this town. And he did. He was the Zenith television dealer decades ago in
Really?
Morehead
Okay.
City, North Carolina. Now, look, if you're listening to this show and you don't know who or what the Zenith television dealer was, that means you're too young to remember life before Walmart came to town.
That's right.
He'd sell you a TV, finance your TV, and actually come to your house and repair your TV. Anyway, so Wayne, he knew everybody in this town. I said, Wayne, you know everybody. He was well plugged into the Rotary Club and all that. I said, Wayne, now here's the magic phrase. Here's the magic phrase. I said, Wayne, I need your help. I said, I have now opened up my real estate investing business by referral only to people I know and trust and who they know and trust. And when you run across somebody that is complaining about the volatility of the stock market and not making any money in the local
Yeah.
bank certificates of deposit. When you hear them complaining about that, would you refer them to me?
Yeah.
Because I am now paying insane high rates of return to my investors.
Love that.
Wayne looked at me and he says, "Well, now, Brother Jay, what you got going on there?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean? What have I got going on?" He said, "Well, what kind of insane high rates of return are you paying?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, are you saying you might be interested?" He said, "Well, I might be interested." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, we're only earning 3%, and that's what it was in
Hmm.
2009. We're only earning 3% in the local bank in a certificate of deposit, and we're losing money right and left in the stock market. We might be interested. What kind of rate are you paying, Jay?" And I said, "Well, that sort of depends on the deal." I said, "What sounds high to you?" He said, "Well, I don't know. We're getting 3%." I said, "I don't know, maybe 5 or 6%." I said, "Wayne, I can't pay you 5 or 6%, but I can pay you 8%." He said, "Put me down for
Wow.
$250,000."
That.
And so that next afternoon, on Thursday afternoon, David, I went to his and his wife's home, and I came to their home with my teacher hat on,
Got it.
and I taught them the entire program. What was the maximum loan to value that I would borrow, which, by the way, is 75% of the after repaired value, which means when I buy a house at a discounted price, I
Mhm.
always bring home a check when I buy
Okay.
and take no money to the closing table. Who wants to get paid to buy houses,
That's
right?
right.
So, anyway, the maximum loan to value, the length of the note, the frequency of payments, the interest rate, how they can get their money back in case of an emergency prior to the term coming due. I taught them all that.
Yeah.
And after 2 cups of coffee, that $250,000 became a $500,000 that afternoon.
Ooh.
And remember the secret sauce: no deal attached
Yeah.
to that initial conversation. And I promised them I'd put their money to work for them just as soon as possible. And they became, unfortunately, both of them have passed away now,
Mhm.
but they became not only phenomenal private lenders, and they'd never heard of private money. They'd never
Yeah.
heard of self directed IRAs. Most people
Mhm.
walking around haven't.
Right.
And they referred so many people to me and Carol Joy over the years. And they were at that private lender luncheon that I told you about. And they even
Mhm.
brought friends to that private lender luncheon. And so, again, a big secret to this process: no chasing, no begging, no selling, no persuading. You're teaching. You got a servant's heart. No talk of any deals until you got the pledge, then the good news phone call, and they're
Mhm.
ready to go, and they're ready to go.
Yeah, I love that, and I like what where you talk about like they didn't understand or know the word private lender or self-directed IRA because I think as investors sometimes we have a tendency to use those inside baseball type terms, and because it makes us feel smart, but that's sometimes not necessary at all
That's
with
right.
what you
And
have going on here.
one of the mistakes that I hear real estate investors who are new to capital raising is they talk too much.
Yes, we
You
all.
talk
Most investors talk too much. Yeah.
and just you keep it simple, and I mean you're really offering
Hmm.
a way for these people to change their their financial situation. I mean,
Yeah.
Wayne and his wife, handwritten thank you notes as to how we changed their retirement years, and they were able to go travel and see grandkids and all
Love that.
that they wouldn't ordinarily be able to because of the kind of returns that we were giving them. So
Mhm.
it really, really is a win-win scenario doing business with these people.
Yeah. Now, Jay, is this ramped up? Again, I've raised money, not even a fraction of what you've done. But did you have a hard time keeping all of that money moving at some point?
Yes.
Because that
Yes.
becomes a problem, right?
Yes. So let's talk about how I manage that
Yeah.
and manage expectations. So when I have a new private lender, which by the way, I haven't had in a long time, it's all I can do to keep juggling what I do have.
Yeah.
I mean, I could expand outside the area if I wanted
Mhm.
to, but that's just my business decision.
Yeah.
I like I like driving by properties that I can drive by within 30 minutes if I choose to.
Yeah.
Half the properties, I don't even go look at them, but my entire teams know I'm
Mhm.
close by. Anyway,
Keeps them honest.
that's right. So I haven't raised any new private money personally in a while. Um, so what was I getting ready to say, David? I lost my train of thought for goodness sakes.
We were talking about having
Oh,
so much
keeping it
money on
busy.
hand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
keeping the money at work. So when I do have a new, or when I did have a new private lender come along,
Mhm.
they got moved to the top of the queue
Mm,
to put their money to work because I want to prove to them I can perform,
makes
right?
sense.
And
Yeah.
so if I didn't have a deal right around the corner within a week or two, then I would take that new money and refinance a current property and pay off the current private lenders
Oh,
so I could show that new private lender, hey, we can put this money to work. And then when we're just doing normal, every day, every week, every month business, it depends on how much money they've got to work with. Because, I got some private lenders that only have $50,000 with me.
yeah.
Well, typically I can't buy a house with that, but I can do a renovation with that a lot of times. So I
Mhm.
can use private money in a secondary or junior lien position
Mm,
below that first position. But if, I got more than one private lender that's got more than $1 million, with me.
mm.
I got one right now that just amped theirs up to $600,000 without me asking. And so it depends on how much money they go, but I just put them in the queue and when I
Yeah.
pay them off. Now I do a lot of substitutions of collateral,
Okay.
meaning,
Describe that for people for that may not understand.
sure. So a substitution of collateral simply means there's a promissory note from your
Mhm.
private lender. You're cashing out a property that is collateralizing that note.
Yeah.
But now I got another property that I'm closing on, say, within a week, or I got another property that's got a lot of equity in it, and now I'm getting
Mhm.
ready to renovate that property. I can keep their note open, but just change the property that is collateralizing that note, hence
Got it.
substitute the collateral. And you don't need to know how to do that. Your real estate attorney takes care of the documentation for you. You just got to make sure you're protecting your private lender or lenders.
Yes.
And if you got more than one private lender that is being secured by that property, then we have what's called total loan to value. So I don't borrow more than 75% total loan to value of the after repaired value, not of
Right.
the purchase price, of the after repaired value. So let's say I got a property in that example that I just used, David, of 200,000. Well, I'm not going to borrow more than 150,000. That's 75%. But I could have bought that property for 100,000,
Sure.
50% of the after repaired value. I got $150,000 wired to my real estate attorney's trust account when I buy. Well, 100,000 goes to the seller, and 50,000 is what my real estate attorney's check stub calls excess cash to close.
Yeah.
Well, that $50,000 comes in my checkbook when I bought without me taking any money to the closing table. And I'm going to use that $50,000 or the majority of it for the renovation.
Nice. So I love that. So I think the important thing for people who have not done this before is you're borrowing 100% of the purchase price and the closing costs and the repair costs.
Yeah. And a good check, and that's correct. A good check and balance, David, is if you're using private money, which you're going to use private money whenever
Mhm.
the seller requires all the cash, right?
Yes.
So I'm not talking about using private money when you buy on terms, such as subject to the existing note. However, if I'm buying a foreclosure, I'll use private money in second position if
Yeah.
there's enough equity to
Mhm.
bring those payments current, right?
Yeah.
But you're going to use private money when the seller requires all the cash,
Yes.
and I'm only going to use that formula for buying all cash when I'm paying all cash, which is the majority of the deals. That's the
Yeah.
majority of the deals in the real world,
Mhm.
regardless of what you might hear somebody say to you on stage. God, let me
Yeah.
tell you something, David. I'm going to share something with you. And it drives me absolutely bonkers. I mean, I want to be like the Kool-Aid guy that runs into the brick wall.
Yeah.
When I hear, have you ever heard the guru or the sales trainer on stage say something to the effect, Oh, just get the deal under contract. The money will show up.
Yes. Yeah.
Where? Where is the money going to
Yeah.
show up?
Yeah.
Now, if you're a wholesaler, obviously you got your buyer's list. But
Yeah.
I'm not talking about wholesaling.
Yeah.
I'm talking about staying in the deal. So
Yeah.
that's why I practice and preach. The money comes first. Get the money lined up. And
Sure.
just think about how much more confident, how many more offers
I
you're
was
going
just
to
going to
make.
say that. Yeah. When I've had, $1 million or 750,000 ready and available, I go out and negotiate a lot different, you know?
Absolutely.
There's a lot more confidence and backbone in me making that offer, knowing I legitimately can close in 3 days.
And we do. In
Hmm.
fact, just a few short years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and I've been in this business since 2003,
Yeah.
but it never occurred to me. Sometimes I'm a slow learner, but it never occurred to me to start using this strategy that I'm going to share
Hmm.
to get more offers accepted. And here's the way it works. So we know time kills deals.
Yes.
We know the more time that goes by from the time you talk to a seller until you
Mhm.
close on that deal,
I know.
all kinds of things can go south,
Yeah.
right? So I want to close it now. I want to close it in 3 days, 4 days,
Mhm.
as soon as we negotiate. So what we now do, and most of these properties are occupied.
Right.
And so, they can't move out in 3 days or 4 days. So I say, look, we'll go ahead and close now, and we'll give you half of your proceeds now.
Mhm.
You can stay in your home for free for whatever length of time that we agree upon. And then when you vacate the house and we walk through it and it's nice and clean, then you'll get the other half of your proceeds.
Mm.
David, I don't know how many offers we've gotten accepted that we probably would have not gotten the deal
Yeah.
if we had waited until they were ready to vacate. Because think of all the other folks who are going to come along and make offers and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So I want to close now and work with them to vacate later.
Yeah. Of course, the more options you can give them and, work with the things that are really a problem or troublesome for them, absolutely makes you the most desirable offer by far.
For sure.
Yeah. So when you and your students are using this process, what's one of the biggest objections that you might hear from a potential private lender?
From a potential private lender,
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked that question because that triggers me to think of this. One of the objections that I
Yeah.
hear, not from private lenders, but from real estate investors and entrepreneurs, is Jay,
Okay.
I'm scared or I'm fearful of rejection. I don't want anybody to
Yeah.
reject me. Well,
Mhm.
here's my answer to that. How can you be rejected if you're not asking anybody for anything?
Yeah.
I'm not asking anybody for anything. I'm teaching them. So as far as objections, I haven't gotten any objections from any potential private lenders, and here's why.
Mhm.
They don't hear me talk about my program and my opportunity unless they want to.
I love that. Yeah.
So I'm not telling them what the interest rate is. I'm not telling them what the whole program, how they can get their money back in case of an emergency, and
Mhm.
the frequency of. I'm not teaching them all that unless they're interested in hearing an alternative way to invest. Because look,
Mm.
when they hear 8% compared to what they're getting in the local bank, and they're sick and tired of the volatility, where else are they going to get this?
Yeah. Yeah. They can't get that kind of return or interest guaranteed. I think it's
Yeah,
it's it's
and
fantastic.
the only reason that a potential new private lender is not going to invest with you is either first of all, here's why I don't get objections. I'm not trying to raise money from existing private lenders that already know this space.
Okay.
I'm talking with people that have never heard
Mm.
about this,
Yeah.
right? This is all brand new and it's going like, wow. I never heard of this thing. And I'm sticking with people that I've already got a relationship with. So that brings up a big point. Eventually, if you're wanting to raise and really scale this,
Yeah,
you're going to run out of your own connections,
sure.
right? There's only so many people in your cell phone. There's only so many people you go to church with. So I teach how to grow your network very, very quickly
Oh, okay.
and meet new people. I've raised millions of dollars by getting involved in Business Networking International.
Yeah.
So even little teeny tiny Morehead City, North Carolina, we started BNI back in 2007 here
Hmm.
in Morehead City in our small area. And so the way BNI works is it's like you've got 25 other people that are on your sales force referring potential people that you want to do business with. So talk about leveraging and growing your network. The Chamber of Commerce, the
Yeah.
Rotary Club, the more people that you are connected with that you can see how you and you can show how you serve, which always attracts people to you,
Hmm.
then you're going to end up with the same problem I did. And that is being able to use all the money because frankly,
Yeah.
there's more money out here available than there are deals.
I think that's fantastic because it is such a limiting belief. I did, a session the other day talking about kind of those big obstacles, or at least mental obstacles, the obstacles between your ears. Yeah, that there were no deals left out there. Same thing with there's so much private money out there.
So
Fan- uh,
true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, so are you able to, borrow money and then relend it out, or are these deals that you're only use, or is this funds that you're only using for your deals?
Yeah, these are funds I only use for my deals, so I don't lend
Mhm.
money out.
Yeah.
I don't match up private lenders with real estate investors. Ask
Mhm.
me why. I did that. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I did that years ago because when I introduce a private lender to someone
Mhm.
else, my reputation's on the line,
Sure.
right? And so nope, don't do that anymore. I teach entrepreneurs and real estate investors how to raise very, very quickly
Mhm.
their own capital.
Nice. Well, that's the perfect segue, Jay. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you and to just learn more about this? Because I love it, and I think it's going to be valuable for not only new investors who are just getting started, but even people like me who have done some deals and even have a basic understanding of private money. How we can take what you've learned over the years and really just throw gasoline and accelerate what we're already doing.
Yes, speaking of that, David, I'm thinking of Sue and Harriet Baldwin
Hmm.
up in Elvira, New York,
Yeah.
and they came into my world a few years ago. Very active in my mastermind group for quite a few years. Well, they came in my world. They already had 100 houses in their portfolio. They
Wow.
had already raised over $1 million in private
Yeah.
money. But we can learn from each other.
Sure.
So I recorded a evergreen webinar with them, and just that webinar got them an extra $3 million. So
Whoa.
as you said, whether it's somebody that's never raised capital or you're a seasoned real estate entrepreneur, you want to raise more capital, then I want to give you my new book I'm so excited about. It's called Where to Get the Money Now.
Love it.
Subtitle: How and Where to Get All the Money for Your Real Estate Deals You'd Ever Want Without Relying on Institutional or Hard Money Lenders.
Yeah.
And this is a book. This is not an ebook. The Postal Service is still in business. I'll autograph it for you. I'll ship
Love
it
it.
to you 3-day express. And I'm going to include with the book, and by the way, the book goes over step by step the exact program that I teach,
Mhm.
an opportunity I teach my private lenders. But there's a gold medallion right up here. I'm also going to include 2 tickets to my upcoming private money conference, which is an
Wow.
in-person conference, private money conference. So I'm going to include these 2 tickets valued at $3,000 to the live event. So I'll send you the book, just covers shipping at www.jconnor.com/book. And I'm an ER, not an OR. So again, that's www.jayconner.com, jconnor.com/book. And I'll rush it right out to you.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna jump on there and grab a copy because I'd love to attend that event too. That sounds absolutely amazing. Where is the event being held?
Right here in our hometown, Morehead City, Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. And the upcoming event is right on an oceanfront
Oh,
hotel.
love it.
Beautiful time of year to come here. It's a 3-day event, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'll have
Mhm.
private lenders there for you to network with. And I dive deep. I'm there all 3 days, diving deep on getting all the private money for your deals. And on top of that, we have a great time. We got a VIP reception at the Dunes Club, private beach
Mm.
club on Thursday night. We have a
Mhm.
good time, and you're going to get a lot of private money after you attend this event.
Awesome. Jay, thank you so much, man. This was a lot of fun. I think private money is with things that are going on in the stock market and things are up and down and topsy-turvy. There's a lot of people that are pulling their money out because they're nervous and they need a place to put it. And I think real estate
Absolutely.
is always the absolute best bet for these people. There's nothing more safe and secure. I like to tell people I can drive down the road, I can look at my house, I can touch it, feel it, taste it, lick it, crawl underneath it. I know it's there. It's a real tangible thing. And that's far safer than sometimes just throwing a dart and picking a stock out of the ticker and hoping it does well.
Absolutely. In addition to that, David, let me
Mhm.
invite your audience to check out my podcast. I'm now in my
Yeah,
eighth year
nice.
of my podcast. The name of my podcast is Raising Private Money. Imagine that. Raising
Fantastic.
Private Money with Jay Connor. And I have 2 shows a week, and I'm
Wow.
always interviewing other real estate investors, interviewing them as to how they have
Mhm.
gone about raising private money.
Love that.
And so, yeah, any podcast platform that you like listening to your podcast, come join the party. Raising Private
Mhm.
Money with Jay Connor.
Awesome. Make sure that we put that down there in the notes. And for those of you who get this when we email it out, I'll be sure to put the link there. Plus the link to get Jay's book. Jay, thank you so much, my friend. I've been looking forward to this. I told you before we jumped on. It's been on my schedule for a while, so I'm glad we finally got to do it.
Thank you, David, for having me so much. God bless you.
Thank you.